What's up guys, Gavin here, and today I want to feature a Earth Machine deck profile. So I've been playing this deck a lot at my locals and been having a ton of fun with it, been experimenting with Ready Fusion, and I do think the card does really make the cut for the deck because it does offer quite a lot of flexibility in access to Cybersource and Steam Gyroid. Those cards are great in this deck because they're just having the extra Earth Machine extenders really can give you access to some plays that you otherwise wouldn't be able to make, and some abilities to play through interruptions that you otherwise wouldn't be able to play through. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the card by card. Okay, to start, for the Infinitrack Engine, we are on 3 copies of Harvester, 3 copies of Heavy Forward, 3 copies of Dozer, 2 copies of Trencher, 1 copy of Tunneler, and 1 copy of Drill. So this engine nets us 6 starters with Harvester and Heavy Forward. It gives us our combo plays with Brutal Dozer. It gives us a follow-up play with Anchor Drill because this card is a pretty good normal summon on your second turn of playing. And also it can be pretty good on your first turn too if you open it up with maybe a Harvester or a Metal Cruncher. However, that does leave you a little bit vulnerable to something like an Imperm or an Effect Veiler, which are very common in this format. But otherwise, the Trencher gives us the ability to special summon from our graveyard, so this can actually give us extension plays on our first turn just to be able to further our combo along by summoning back out one of our other Brutal Dozers or Harvesters to get more material on the board, or it can be used or you can save it for your next turn of playing to be able to summon out Harvester again if you have one in your graveyard, so that you can actually use its effect once again to get another search off and continue comboing off on your following turns. And then of course the 1 copy of Tunneler for shuffling back your Earth Machines. So a lot of the time you're shuffling back your extra deck monsters with this card, but you can also shuffle back your main deck monsters, and we do have a couple ways to be able to recur this card. So we have the Overdrive, which can shuffle it back after it's been banished, and we also do play Dingirsu to be able to attach this card back onto Dingirsu so that we can use it again, which is really cool. So that's a 13 card engine, and honestly I would never change anything about this engine anytime soon because I do think the ratios are perfect as they are. For the Machina Engine, we are on triple copies of Metal Cruncher, triple copies of Redeployment, 1 copy of Fortress, and 1 copy of Citadel. So Metal Cruncher is really good because it searches pretty much the entire deck. Any card that we desperately need to search with this card, we play 3 copies of. So in the worst case, if they're all in the deck, we can just reveal all 3 of them. And if not, that means we have one of them in our hand, which is really good, and we can actually go ahead and search for something else that we might get, we might not get. If we get it, great, but otherwise we're still pretty happy. So I do really like the Metal Cruncher a lot. Hopefully it does get reprinted in the Megatins. I am expecting that it will. Hopefully we get a rarity bump on this card because having a Prismatic Secret Rare of this card would be pretty nice, and I would actually love that for the deck. And then Metal Cruncher gets us access to any 2 Machina monsters, but also if we discard a Machina card, that makes the trap actually searchable, which is really cool because having access to the trap turn 1 is definitely something you might want to consider because if you do get interrupted enough, you can actually just set the trap, and the trap is just really strong in its own right because it brings out Citadel, or if you already have Citadel in the grave, it pops something on your field so that you can bring it back from the graveyard and special summon a Metal Cruncher and get a search off Metal Cruncher on your opponent's turn to give yourself some follow-up for your next turn, which is that feels really good when that happens. So that's really it for the Machina Engine. I was on 2 Fortress before, but I do think 1 is fine now because the main reason for that was because the Shadal matchup, the invoked Shadal matchup. When they bring out Winda, this card, you can actually beat over Winda and actually continue your plays in main phase 2. But since I haven't really been seeing that deck, I didn't really feel the need to play multiple copies of this card. Also, having 2 does give you more search power with redeployment because once you've searched your Fortress and your Citadel, this card kind of becomes dead because it's just, you need to search 2 things with it, and if you can't discard a Metal Cruncher to search like another Metal Cruncher in the trap, it's just kind of dead, and you would need to shuffle back some Machina monsters before you could actually go for that. So just keep that in mind as well. And we're playing for the train package, 1 copy of Bullet Train and 2 copies of Dare Crane. So this is our package of 3 trains. I do like having 3, so double Dare Crane is my go-to because what you can actually do is, if you open Metal Cruncher and you already have a Brutal Dozer in your hand and you don't need to search the Brutal Dozer, having 3 trains in here is really nice, because you could guarantee that you get one off the Metal Cruncher, so that you normal summon the Metal Cruncher, get a train, and then go into Brutal Dozer, and then use Brutal Dozer to go into the River Stormer, and River Stormer can get you whatever train that you don't have currently in your hand, so that you can actually have both trains, and then go into a Super Dora on your first turn, which will drastically increase your chance of winning the game. So that's the theory behind having all 3. Also, Derrick Crane's really good for chain blocking your Infinitrack Harvester, so or your Metal Cruncher for that matter, because it kind of buries whichever one of these that you go for first on chain link 1, and this will be chain link 2, so your opponent can't actually respond to whichever one of these that you just activated. So that's pretty cool, but it still does leave them vulnerable to Imperm or Effect Veiler, unfortunately. And then for the one really hard brick of the deck is Gearbox. We really don't want to see this thing in our opening hand ever, but a lot of the times, sometimes, I mean, you do open this card, and it's not really the end of the world, although you can't go for the search off of the Ancient Gear Ballista. For some reason, the Ancient Gear Ballista art has not showed up for me for like the past couple days for whatever reason, I don't know, but Dueling Book is just weird like that. For the rest of the deck, we are on triple copies of Ready Fusion. This card is just really sweet in this deck, and the more I've been testing it, the more I love playing it. I'd love to open this card because it definitely makes playing a lot easier. You can play through some interruptions if your opponent stops you from summoning off of the Brutal Dozer. At least now you have access to Cybersaurus if you have the Ready Fusion in your hand, so that you can carry on and make River Stormer and get your search off of that card. Also, the Steam Gyroid has been a real MVP, because you can use Harvester or Anchor Drill to make a level 8 or a level 10 respectively with Steam Gyroid, so you can go into Dingirsu a lot easier, or you can go into a level 10 easier on your first turn as well, which is super cool. Or on your second turn, you know, you can even go for Gustav and then Lieb just for that quick OTK, which always just felt really good to me. So I love these cards, and I'm so happy Ready Fusion is a card now, because I can actually play my childhood nostalgia and have a good reason for doing so. And then of course for the hand traps, we're playing triple copies of Effect Veiler, triple copies of Imperm, and 2 copies of Ash. So I would love to be able to play more hand traps in here, but I do feel like I need to play the double copies of Twin Twisters, because I don't want to outright lose to something like a Mystic Mine or just other back row in general. I do like having the tool of being able to remove my opponent's back row, especially something like a Anti-Spell Fragrance or a Imperial Order, because you can chain this card to the activation of those cards, so you're not like completely screwed. Because at the end of the day, we have 6 starters that are spell cards, and 3 extenders that are spell cards as well. So those cards would otherwise really screw you over, and I don't like them, so that's why I feel like I have to respect them and play the Twin Twisters. And then 1 Called by the Grave, because it's beautiful when you draw it and your opponent tries to hand trap you. And then 1 copy of Overdrive. So I'd love to play 2 copies of this card, and you know, I'd love to play as many copies of this card as I can, but going second, this card is a little bit underwhelming, so you kind of have to play it at 1. I feel like maybe I might try and play it at 2, but I do want to keep the deck size at 40, so we're just playing 1 for now, because it does give you access to the grind game, and it's also a really good card to set going first, because it does give you access to your Citadel, and just Citadel is a super strong interruption, just like Prank Kids Battle Butler. So that's why we are playing the 1. We're playing another copy in the side deck in case we go first, because this card's definitely not bad to open going first. Okay, to start for the extra deck, we're playing triple copies of Goliath, because playing 3 is mandatory in my opinion, because being able to go through all 3 on your first turn and then shuffle them back into the extra deck is really good, because when you're using Tunneler's Effect, you don't really want to be diluting your deck with like more extenders and starters after you've already gone through your entire turn, because you're really looking for your interruptions so that you can actually bounce back and just kill your opponent next turn. So being able to not dilute your deck and then draw into 2 potential disruptions is really, really good. And then for the 2 Link 2s, playing 1 copy of Anger Knuckle and 1 copy of Ballista. So Ballista searches Box, and Box can search a Tunneler, a Trencher, or a Anchor Drill. So whichever one of those that you feel like you need, it's just really, really impactful search and really good to be able to have access to whichever one you need. And then for the Xyz monsters, playing one copy of Ding, because with Ready Fusion it's a lot easier to access this card because you can go Steam Gyroid and Harvester to make Ding, and then Ding can attach or send. It's just really flexible, and I really do appreciate flexibility in my cards. One copy of Zeus, because Zeus just sends everything to the graveyard, and it's a pretty decent card to make on turn 2 if you actually can't OTK your opponent. And I try to avoid using Brutal Dozer's effect on my second turn of playing because I do actually want to go for machine Xyz plays that are not actually Earth machines, like Zeus and Ding. So that's why I try to avoid that. One copy of Earth Slicer, because this card just can kind of clean up boars before you try and go for game. So if your opponent has a couple back row set or a couple monsters on the field, you can just go ahead and pop them if they don't have like protection or whatnot. So this card's really awesome. Also, it can pop 3 if you attach Heavy Forward underneath of it, which does come up sometimes as well. One copy of River Stormer, because River Stormer is the like kind of keystone combo piece of the deck that really makes it work. It searches pretty much the entire deck, which is awesome. Also, being able to use this on your following turns is really good. You do definitely want to keep this card in your graveyard if you can. If you only have 5 Earth Machines and you need to shuffle it back, it's probably better that you hold off on the Tunneler till maybe your following turn, unless you really, really need to try and draw into something. But yeah, just having this card in your graveyard is really good, because what you can do is you can go into an Infinitrack monster, then immediately link it into Goliath, and then use River Stormer to bring itself back from the graveyard by tributing off the Goliath, and then use Goliath's graveyard effect to attach it onto River Stormer so you can get a search. So you can do this every single turn, and you can get tons of searches off of this card, and just really, really awesome card to be able to recur over and over again. And then one copy of Super Dora for basing up, essentially. So this is like the base monster that you sit behind. If you can make this card on your first turn, you feel really good about it, because it's very hard for your opponent to be able to out this card if its effect resolves on their turn, because 4,000 defense is quite a lot for most decks to even try to get over. Then one copy of Enter Blathnir, so having access to some non-targeting banish removal is really good. Also, being able to rip a card out of our opponent's hand on the first turn is pretty cool as well. And then Gustav Max for getting some damage in on your turn that you're going for game. So what you do is, if you can make this card with a Dare Crane underneath, you can go ahead and make this thing, detach Dare Crane, pop something on your opponent's field, then you can go into a Lieb. So in like a simplified game state, if your opponent only had like one monster on the field, this kind of like clears up their board so that you can use Lieb's effect and get itself up to 6,000 attack, and then just push for games. And that's a pretty effective way to win games if your opponent is kind of like low on resources and doesn't have much of a board. It just closes out the game real quick. And then to round it off for the extra deck, our Ready Fusion targets, Cybersaurus and Steam Gyroid. I've already kind of explained them a little bit, but you know, they're extenders and they're really good to have their levels modulated to go into our plethora of Xyz plays in the deck. So they're also recyclable off of Tunneler. So if we do end up going for, you know, we need to use one of them twice. So let's say we need 2 Cybersaurus. Chances are you could probably just shuffle one back and use it again with another copy of Ready Fusion if you are in like a longer game. So that's pretty cool as well. So that's it for the extra deck, guys. Let's go breeze through a side deck real quick. Okay, for the side deck, we're on triple copies of Droll, triple copies of Gamma Seal, 2 copies of Nib, 1 copy of Feather Duster, 1 copy of Twin Twister, 3 copies of Urgent Schedule. So I was maining Urgent Schedule before, but I do think it's just better in the side deck just because this card is such a powerhouse going second. Like, oh my goodness, this card is so amazing. Like, it's quick play too, which is just so awesome because you can chain it to Imperial Order and Anti-Spell Fragrance, which is just beautiful. And then 1 copy of Red Reboot, because very good against Tri Brigade if you do happen to draw it. And then 1 copy of Machina Overdrive for when you're going first, and especially if you're playing against a grindier deck, this card does give you extra gas to continue making plays on turns 3 and 4 if the game goes for that long, which sometimes it actually can. So that's it for the side deck. Let's go ahead and get into a game just to kind of demonstrate how Ready Fusion really is an MVP in this deck. Okay, so for this game I am playing against a Sky Striker player, and I am going second. This is not going to be a full best of 3, just because my opponent did leave in the middle of the second game, and it also would have been just really long because, like I said, this deck does take a long time to play, so I wanted to keep the video at least like reasonably short, or like a reasonable time frame. I know it's not really a short video, but anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going second, as I said, and we're both on 40 cards, and so he's going to open up Shark Cannon, Ray, Widow Anchor, Engage, and Terraforming, so his hand is absolutely bonkers. So yeah, let's just go ahead and see what he does. So going into his turn, he's going to start with activating Terraforming, grabbing Area 0, activating Area 0 using the Area 0 effect on the set card. Going to reveal 3 from the top, grab the Afterburners, shuffle the other 2 back, send the set card to the graveyard, which was his Shark Cannon, activate Engage, which was just absolutely insane, grabbing Multi-Roll, activate Multi-Roll effect, send Area 0. Now I can no longer respond to his spell card activations. Then he's going to use the Area 0 effect to bring out a Ray from his deck. So now he has access to 2 Ray, then go into Kagari, and then use Kagari effect, adding back Engage. And at this point he does have 3 spells in the graveyard, so he's going to be able to get a draw off of the Engage, which is just really insane for him. So he's going to grab a Widow Anchor, draw 1, and he does draw into Rose, and then set 2 Widow Anchor, link into Shizuku, and then go to end phase, grabbing a Eagle Booster, activating the Eagle Booster, targeting Shizuku, and then using Multi-Roll to set the booster and the Area 0. So he has a pretty good board going into his turn. So I'm going to start by activating Redeployment, pitching Metal Cruncher, because I do not foresee myself going full combo here, obviously because of all of his interruption. So I do want to be able to grab a trap to give myself at least some sort of a grind game here. So that's exactly what I do. I grab another Metal Cruncher and another trap. Go ahead and special summon that Metal Cruncher. Go for the effect. He does let it go through. So I reveal Fortress, Dare Crane, and Bullet Train. I get the Bullet Train, which is actually really good. Activate Ready Fusion, bringing out Cybersaurus, then go into Trencher, and then Trencher effect to tribute off and special summon itself. Then go into River Stormer here, and then before I activate the River Stormer, he does hit me with the Widow Anchor, which is unfortunate, but he definitely should have waited for me to activate the River Stormer effect so that I wouldn't be able to use it. And he doesn't actually want to take it because he does have the Eagle Booster and the Widow Anchor set, so those would just be dead if he actually took it, so that's why he doesn't, and I just kind of assumed he did, but that was definitely wrong of me for doing so. Anyways, continuing on, I go for the Bullet Train effect to special summon it, and then link off into Goliath. Here I actually misplay pretty hard. I get caught up in the moment and forget, of course, about Goliath's effect, which is just, like, very stupid of me because, yeah, that would have actually been enabled me to search, because since he didn't wait for me to activate the River Storm effect, then I would have actually been able to use its effect if I attached the Goliath back onto it. So, oops. Definitely just gotta keep in mind those little things that can definitely win you the games. Then I'm going to go for Tunneler, and then going for, before actually being able to link off the Tunneler here, he does steal the Tunneler with the Widow Anchor this time, and then this obviously gets banished because it was set off of the Multi-Roll. So now I don't actually have any more link material, which kind of sucks, but I am just going to go ahead and set the Overdrive, and that's exactly why I grabbed it, because I did not foresee myself going full combo here. Anyways, yeah, I definitely could have played that turn a little bit better if I searched the River Stormer. He definitely would have been forced to use the Widow Anchor on the Stormer, and I probably would have been able to go off quite a bit harder than I did, but regardless, we got to live with our mistakes, right? So he's going to give this back to me because it does come back during the end phase. And mistake he also made here was not setting back the Widow Anchor or the Shark Cannon. So he could have set a Widow Anchor and a Shark Cannon and had those so that he actually could have used them again. But I don't know if that was on purpose or not, or if he's just a new player that just didn't really understand that you could do that. But yeah, I guess that makes it a little bit easier for me, I guess. Anyways, so he's going to shotgun these MST, which once again I don't think is a great play here. Probably would have been better to save this for like maybe if this was a, you know, Imperial Order, he would actually kind of be screwed here, because otherwise, you know, his spells would just be dead. So it doesn't really matter. It's not like he's getting any value here, so I'm just going to go ahead and activate the Overdrive, targeting the Bullet Train, special summoning out Citadel, and getting access to the big boy. And getting this into grave is just nice, because I can use it next turn to be able to recur more resources. So it's going to activate Area 0, and then link off into Kagari. Kagari is going to add back Engage, and he's going to continue plussing like crazy, and then he's going to go for the multi-roll here. So that's going to get banished, but now I'm no longer able to respond to his spell card activations. He is going to Afterburners my Citadel, and I try to activate its effect in response, but obviously forgetting that I can no longer do that because of multi-roll. So Citadel just goes to the graveyard, and nothing else happens there. So now he's going to go for Engage again, getting his 2 cards, so getting an Anchor and drawing a card. So he's going to go Battle Phase, beat over the Tunneler, and then Citadel is going to trigger, bringing itself back out. And then he's going to go into the Hayate and special summoning out Rose, and then he's going to go for a Zeke to banish my Citadel. And I try to use Citadel's effect in response to the Zeke, but he does have the Anchor, so he is going to negate it and then banish it. So yeah, that thing's not coming back until the end of my next turn. So he's going to just go ahead and use multi-roll here, setting 2 more, and he's going to go ahead and use Shizuku, and he grabs himself a Shark Cannon, and he does not have a Shark Cannon in grave, so that was definitely legal. So we'll go for Harvester. He's going to imperm that, and I forget to use Bullet Train's effect there at the end phase, which obviously another mistake. I definitely could have played this game better, but yeah, we're still able to do some pretty cool stuff here. So now he's going to Shark Cannon my Tunneler, which he definitely should have waited for me to like try and do something first, right? Because even though this is pretty strong for him to be able to banish, really kind of crippling my grind game, it's not actually going to matter, because it would have been better for him to hit like a Stormer after I use this effect, or a Trencher after I use its effects. Either one of those scenarios I think would have been a little bit more disruptive to me, so I think he probably could have waited there a little bit. So that's going to get banished because it was set off multi-roll. I'm going to link into Goliath, and now I'm going to go ahead and go into my Stormer, and then use Stormer's effect, or the Goliath effect, to attach itself onto Stormer. And then now I get my search off here, which is really good. So he's actually going to Widow Anchor it, which is fine, honestly, at this point. Doesn't really matter too much. And then I'm just going to go for Trencher and special summon out the Harvester, and then use the Ready Fusion in my hand to go into the Steam Gyroid, which is great. So now we're just going to make both of the levels become level 8. I'm going to go into Dinkirsu and use Dinkirsu's effect to attach the Tunneler onto itself. So now that I will be able to make a 4 material Zeus, but also I will be able to use Tunneler's effect this turn, which is really cool. So he's going to go into Ray, which is fair, and then I'm going to go into the Zeus here, which is really, really good, because I did not use the Infinitrack Brutal Dozer, so I am free to go into whatever machine monsters I want. That goes for Dinkirsu as well, because it is a dark and Zeus is a light. So he's going to chain Ray and go into Kagari, and I think he was a little confused here. I don't think Kagari would actually trigger there, because by the time it's not really on the field like after the chain resolves, because if he chained Ray as chain link 3, then it would go Kagari, and then everything would have been wiped from the board before like this would have been able to resolve in the next chain link. So I think that he doesn't actually get a search off that. So that was a little bit confusing and a little bit spaghetti. I apologize on that part, but maybe I was wrong there. Maybe he should have gotten the search off, but either way, I don't think it was super impactful. But you know, that being said, also getting engaged would have been pretty good for him, I guess. So Anyways, I'm going to activate the overdrive effect to recycle my banished trencher and tunneler and put back a metal cruncher, shuffle, draw one, set a twin twisters, even though I don't really think I needed to do that. And then we're just going to go ahead and go into the next turn. And Citadel should have came back in the end phase of last turn, because that's what Zeke does. Then it's going to link into Hayate. And then on the start step of the battle phase, I am going to use the Citadel to blow it up. And then he is going to go into the Ray here. And then I'm going to... He goes into Shizuku, of all things, which is kind of weird. And then he's going to cannon my Citadel. And then I am going to... he's going to set one, and then I'm just going to go ahead and Zeus the entire board away. Just because it's kind of over for him at that point. So that definitely wasn't the most optimally played game of Yu-Gi-Oh! For sure, but I think it kind of just demonstrates how this deck actually has quite a lot of power going for it and can do a lot of cool things. So that being said, if you made it to the end of the video, guys, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. And with that, I'm just going to leave you with a peace out, have a nice day, and goodbye.